I said to my kids yesterday, I was like, oh, Mummy's got her little chat tomorrow night, so you're doing bedtime with Daddy. And they said, what are you going to talk about? And I said, I don't know at the moment. I normally get inspired by something. And my eldest said, why don't you talk about love, Mummy? Because that's what your job is. And I was like, actually, yes. So I'm talking about love today. And what about it? How do you make it come into conversation when you're talking about your ceremony? Whether it's your ceremony about a naming or a ceremony for a funeral or a ceremony for a wedding. Because actually people don't talk about love and how they love and what they want from their love or how they want to show their love. People go quite British, particularly English. Tell you what made me think about it. I'm so behind on telly and the world of Netflix. I've just started watching The Crown. Last week, do you remember I said I was watching Killing Eve? I totally binge watched it and have now finished series 3, and I got influenced by the perfume, inspired by perfume. I was watching The Crown and I've gotten to the second series, and it's the middle bit now. I think there's a third series. I don't know, I haven't got that far. And it's where the awful quarry, the Welsh, when the quarry collapsed and took out the school, and there was something like 103 children died, and it was awful. And the Queen was upset that she hadn't got upset enough. And apparently it was the biggest regret of her sovereign reign thus far. And it's really, really powerful. But what particularly struck me is that when she was going to visit, the reason that she'd said she wasn't going to visit was because the last thing a disaster needed was the hubbub and kerfuffle and circus that came with a royal visit. And so she delayed it. But then when she did go, they said, you're going to Wales, they expect emotion. And when Prince Regent was talking about how emotional he felt, he said the singing really got him. And singing is so emotive, and singing is such an expression of love. Such an expression of love. And quite often, more often than not, obviously ignoring COVID where they've said try not to sing, pretend that hasn't happened and that you can have a sing-song. And those of you getting married or having a ceremony sometime in the future, have a sing-song. I mean, when I've done weddings where they've done a group song, it really lifts the spirit. Everyone really falls in love with the feeling and it just lights up. I would say the room, but I've done outdoor weddings and I've done woodland weddings. Well, I mean, they're all outdoors. But, you know, some are in the back garden, some are in a field, some are in the woods. But when you get singing, oh my God, it's amazing. And the love just fills and everyone, it's just wicked. As long as you pick the right song. If you pick the wrong song, it's a little bit painful. So you do need to pick the right song and make sure you've got some good singers planted around. Otherwise, it's very funny rather than very emotional in a nice way. So singing is a really gorgeous way of bringing out the love. But what was interesting about when they said, you're going to Wales, you need to show emotion. Being English, showing emotion. And so being able to show emotion. I was talking to some brides today, and Jess, I don't know if you're tuning in, but if you are, hello. She was talking about her fiance to be, and they were like, you know, he'll be really stock solid. You won't get anything out of him. And I was like, he'll go to bits on the day. Because it really, and you only get that frog in your throat and it just cracks. And I was saying about one of my favourite bits. I don't know whether it's the theatre manager in me or I don't know. But because I do a rehearsal, I would quite often say to whoever's at the top, be it the groom, it's usually the groom, but I'd say to the groom at the rehearsal, do not turn around until I say. And I'll say to the photographer, when the bride or the other groom gets to, say, the second row from the back, I'm going to say to the groom, okay, you can turn now. So they catch that look. And it's so exciting because the groom's looking at me going, oh my God, it's actually happening. Here we go, here we go, here we go. And you can see it all bubbling up. And then they see my face when they arrive and I'm like, oh, she looks amazing. And I'm going, don't turn around, don't turn around. And they get to a certain point, I'm like, you can turn around now. And just like, oh, the love flows and, oh, I love it. And it got me thinking about how can one show love on the day, and how can one, I've got really itchy palms, what does that mean? How can one handle love in marriage, or love in grief, or love as a parent when it's so big? Where do you put it? I remember when one of my nieces was born, I was just on the phone to my sister-in-law going, where do we put this love? Like, I don't know where to put it. Where do we put it? We're so in love. And where do you put it? And when you're grieving, and we go very stock still, upper lip, and just hold it together until the funeral's over. I mean, really? We've got to get out of that. Like, it's the funeral. This is the one time you don't need to hold it together. Like, cry. If you need to cry, cry, because someone you love has left you. And, you know, whether it's left you for now or left you forever or not left you and is always with you, whatever it is. But at that time, them as you know them to have been is no longer the case. And there is a love change and a love shift. And how do you show that love? And it just got me thinking, and it got me thinking about marriage preparation courses and wedding planning courses, and not how to be a wedding planner, but how to plan ahead of your emotional preparation for marriage. We were quite unusual, I think, because we did a sort of divorce talk before we got married. So, like, say, I think that's because my dad's a solicitor. We just went into it not saying, if we get divorced, but just saying, so we are completely, we've done all the harsh stuff that might get cloudy with emotion before it gets to there, which hopefully it'll never get to there. You know, what is yours, what's mine? If how do we do our assets? How, all those kind of, what tensions do we see coming? At what point is that line crossed? Where is the line, and what is that line for? We had those conversations before. And so as and when, you know, we've run into trouble, we can go, we've talked about this, and we both agreed, when we had a clear head and we weren't in this situation, this is what our thoughts were. And they're like, oh yeah, fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. And we kind of backtrack on ourselves and get over ourselves and, you know, laugh and carry on. But what's really interesting is making sure that you have had with each other, if you are getting married or if you are grieving, how you show that love. And actually, from one loved one to another, you don't have to understand it. You don't have to understand each other's love. You need to be able to accept it, because that is how they love. And if you're constantly going, I don't understand you, it doesn't matter. I don't want to be understood completely. I like being a little bit misunderstood in a nice way. If he was like, yeah, I can read your mind, I know exactly what you're feeling, I know what's going to set you off. I mean, there's repeat behaviour, and there's triggers, and, you know, there's our general personalities. But, you know, there's no dress rehearsal on grief. Each time someone dies, it's accumulative. And each time you get married, I was actually doing a funeral for someone who'd got married quite a few times. And they just had their heart on their sleeve, and they fell in love just so easily. But they never understood why, and they never really accepted why either. And it's really enlightening and really inspiring and massively reassuring if you have a conversation with each other about how you love. I mean, my husband and I love each other quite differently. I'm quite busy and behavioural led and a worrier and checking everything's okay, and not very good at relaxing. I find relaxing quite stressful. But he is so full on at work when he's at work, and I'm so full on at work when I'm at work, that when we stop, he loves that stillness, and his ideal is sitting down quietly on the sofa with me, rubbing his like forehead or stroking his hand. Whereas me being stroked or winds me up, I'm like, stop it. I'm like, just hold my hand or slap my bum, but don't stroke me. But he loves being stroked. You know, it's just different. And I don't need to understand why he likes being stroked. I just know that's what he likes. So I'll stroke his head, and then he'll fall asleep, and then I can turn the channel from whatever rubbish he's watching, and I can watch my own rubbish. So it's fine. But what's I want everyone to have, you know, part of these Wednesday chats is chat with your other half, or chat with your siblings on how you are with your parents, or how you are with your children. How, you know, if you're parents, you love your children differently. Not as in you love each child differently, but the way one parent loves a child is different to how another parent loves a child. So talk about it. What is it that empowers you? What is it that inspires you? What is it that you find really quite impressive about each other and the way they love? What is it that winds you up about each other and the way they love? But I would say, you know, the most, especially with wedding preparation, how you love each other is a conversation you need to have. And what you like about how each other loves you is a conversation you need to have. I didn't realise that, I mean, my version of sitting down watching telly with Joe snoring next to me winds me up. But I'm like, just go to sleep. Why are you downstairs falling asleep on the sofa? Go up to bed and fall asleep. Whereas he's like, I want to know that you're here, because I'm quite often working at night, so I'm pretty much always working at night. And so at least if he knows he's beside me, he is then relaxed enough to fall asleep. Because most of you know I used to work in theatre, so I didn't used to finish work in North London until about 12:30, and then I usually missed the night bus. I usually missed the last tubes, and I'd have to night bus it from Highbury and Islington to Wimbledon. And then I started cycling because it was easier. And like cycling through Smithfield at 1 o'clock in the morning was quite fun. And every now and then I'd just stop and chat to the butchers or whatever. So I wouldn't then get home till 3, and I'd be full of beans, just on a 12-hour shift, and then I'd cycle through London at night, which was magical. And I'd be full of beans and get home and be like, ah! And then he'd be asleep on the sofa, and I'm like, why are you not in bed? And he's like, because I waited for you to get home safely. I was like, oh, that's nice. Sorry. So, you know, for him to have me close was relaxing for him because he knew I was safe. Whereas for me, you know, my job as a theatre manager was so busy and so sociable and so anti-socially sociable. You know, it was an anti-sociable, sociable job because I was never with people like, you know, Saturday night mates. I was at work, or Friday night, this, that and the other. So for me, being left for the night off on my own with a hot bath and a candle, a peace and quiet was lovely, whereas that would really worry Joe. So having those conversations, hi Sharon, having those conversations about how you love is actually really interesting and quite enlightening. You're like, oh, I didn't realise that. So that's good to do. And then from that, you also find each other's needs. You know, the behaviour that you've had, I mean, people can't change how they love necessarily, but they can change the way they behave in how they love, or the way they behave in receiving that love. So it might be that your needs, I get over helpful and I worry. For me, I think that's me showing love because I want them to know I'm thinking about them, or, you know, are they okay? Then I go into annoyingly fussy mood, which actually he might find really fussy, and he's like, could you just leave me to my man cave for a bit? I'm like, okay. But knowing that him going quiet isn't personal to me and a rejection to me, it's how he handles being quiet or dealing with emotions. So, you know, putting your needs in order, your loving words or your helpful actions or quality time or thoughtful presence or physical or physical affections. I mean, like, for example, when I'm in pain, I want silence. I just want silence. I don't want people going, "Are you okay? What have you done?" I'm like, "I'm clearly in pain, shut up." And I remember in labour, it's such a weird feeling. I started absolutely cackling with laughter. And the midwife was like, what's that? And Joe was like, "Oh yeah, she does that when she doesn't know where to put herself." And I was just like going, this is so weird. And I remember just really laughing hysterically. Which is kind of a nice pain. So nice pain I don't mind. Obviously, because I've had 3 children now. But like painful pain, like when you tread on a plug or you stub your toe, I just want silence. Just want silence. Whereas like my son will hop around screaming and want screaming back. Like, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." I'm like, shh. So it's working out between you as a couple, how are your needs of your love met? Do you even know? Have you even thought about it? It might be, if you're having recurring arguments, is it actually because your needs are in a different order? How you love each other in those elements of, I don't know, physical attraction, quiet time, loving words, talking, aloneness. What's that word? Solitude, just alone time. Maybe they will be different, or they probably will be different. But maybe if you don't realise that, that's what keeps clashing. So it was really interesting when Joe and I did this exercise, and we sort of do it every, couple of years and just go, right, how do we do this? And it's a questionnaire I give to my couples, and it's a questionnaire that I give to myself, because that would be what the clash is. For me, when I'm in a pickle, I know as a husband he wants to help me, and as a man, I know that's a massive sweeping generalisation, but as a man he wants to fix it. And as a woman, I'm like, I don't want you to fix it. I don't actually want you to have opinion. I want you to shut up, pour me a glass of wine and just nod and go, yes, I'll run you a bath. Lovely. What I don't want is, well, that's silly. Maybe you should have done this, this, this. How about if you try this? I'm like, stop trying to solve it. Stop trying to fix it. It's not a problem. Just talking about it to get off my chest, and then I'll feel better. And he's like, what? Whereas if he wants to talk about something, I go, oh, yeah, and I'm listening, and I'm, all right, and I'll say it back, so I check that I've understood what he's saying, and then he'll say, why are you saying it back to me? I'm like, well, because I'm checking that what you've said is what I've heard. And he's like, and? I'm like, and what? And he's like, what do you think? I was like, oh, okay. Because for me, I wouldn't want him to fix it. I just want to talk about it. Whereas he's like, and your solution is? I'm like, okay. So we know for us, that's our little clash. He wants to fix and I want to comfort. But had we not had those conversations, I could imagine that we would come to blows is the wrong word, but we'd come to a sticking point, I guess. And it goes back to everything. It goes back to wedding planning. It goes back to anything. Buying a car. Why don't you want a grey one? Because grey's dangerous, and in England the weather's usually grey, and then the car's even more disguised, and then we become invisible, and then we're more likely to crash. And he's like, wow, I thought you just didn't like grey. And I'm like, oh no, I've gone to car crash scenario, because it turns out I'm a deep set worrier. It was a bit booby, this top, sorry. Tuck him away. So yeah, just wanted to talk about love. Tell me your stories. Have you realised that you're a fixer, or you're a warrior, or you're a feeder? My friend's a feeder. Every time you go around, or a cup of tea. Cup of tea will fix everything. Night sleep and hot bath. Or pretty things. So is it William Morris said, if it's not pretty, it doesn't serve a purpose, you don't need it in your life. And I was like, that's quite good. I quite like that for stuff. That's quite good for stuff. It doesn't really work for people. But I think if you apply those rules, or those rules is too strong, those guidelines, like how do I feel? How do I love? How do I love physically? How do I love emotionally? How do they receive that love? Is it in the same way that I'm giving it. Because some people might think, oh, it's tough love. You know, if they have to make mistakes to learn from them. And you're like, well, yes, but if those mistakes cause harm, actually, aren't you all about keeping them safe and happy? But does that come with a to a point clause, or does it come to a serves you right, I'll see you in hospital? You know, at what point does your ideal way of loving clash with actually what's best? So it's just a point, and I think it's something as couples people should really think about. You know, how do you behave? What are your needs in order? Does your order of needs match or clash? Is it ever really a clash, or is it just learning how each other work? I think the words like tolerate aren't good enough. I don't think you should tolerate each other's ways, because tolerate means at some point you're done putting up with it. You're done. I won't tolerate that anymore. If I'm tolerating something, it means actually I'm not happy with it, but I'm going to suck it and see. So I don't want to tolerate the way someone loves me, or how I don't want them to think, oh, well, I'll tolerate her because. I'm like, no, don't tolerate me. Just, if I'm not right for you, tell me. Because I'm trying my best, and this is how I love, and if the way I'm loving you isn't working, let's talk about it. And if then you're not, do you see where I'm going? So it's finding out how you love physically, mentally, emotionally, how your other half wants to be loved physically, mentally, emotionally, and in order how those sit with each other. So that's good for marriage. For grief, who knows? You never know until you're in it. And then when you're in it more than once, it's different, which catches a lot of people out. You know, if you say you've had to organise one funeral for one parent, and then unfortunately 10 years later you have to do the funeral for another parent. I've got so many clients that go into it going, unfortunately I've done this before, so you know, I get it and I know it needs to be done, and they go a little bit over helpful. And so I get to the meeting, they're like, right, here's our order of service, we've got these hymns, we've got this, and they haven't actually realised how they're expressing their love, or what even the love is that they're feeling. How is that love lost, and how do you handle that lost love? It goes straight into behaviour and fixing, or it goes into mess and not fixing. Or actually, if they're really secure and just know above all they love them and they want to make their service for their loved one the most lovely thing they possibly can, that one is always the winner. If they come to me and they're like, I don't even know where to start, I'm always like, just tell me about them. Tell me why you love them. Tell me why you're sad. Tell me why I'm here. And they go, well, because... oh, why are you here? And it sounds a really simple question, like, why hire someone? Why have a celebrant? Like, because you want to have that person in the room that can hold it together. You want that person in the room that can be your words if you can't get them out. On the flip side, if you're doing your wedding vows and the person that's like, yeah, I can take this, I'm going to be all good, I'm going to bash out my vows, usually that is exactly why I do rehearsals, because at the rehearsal everybody's in bits and they're like, oh my god, how am I going to get through tomorrow? And I'm like, you'll be fine tomorrow, because this is the first time you've said it. Tomorrow you'll smash it out of the park, it'll be amazing. So it's actually, it can be quite a tough conversation, because you're really awakening to the love. And actually that reminds me of a post I saw today from Terry Shanks, she's who trained me at the Fellowship of Professional Celebrants, and it was all about, I'll post it actually if I can figure out how to do a repost. I've never done a repost before. But it was saying about, it was a prayer to God, and she said, I'm not overly religious, but this really struck me, and it was I'm falling apart. I'm like, here, and there's bits on the floor falling. It was saying, it's bits of a puzzle on the floor. They're saying it's fine. It's the bits you don't need coming off. And then you're going to be left with the essentials that are actually the essence of you, not all the noise and the add-ons. And I think actually lockdown and COVID's probably done that to us a bit. We've sort of shed the dead skin. We don't need that. It's awoken us to what's important to us. It's put under the microscope what's good and what's bad in our lives. It's put to the forefront actually working out who and how people love you and who and how you love. So love is hugely important. I mean, it's the whole reason we give someone a funeral. And when I say to people, hi Lucy, why am I here? Why are you engaged? Why did you say yes? Why did you ask? Why are we going through organising a wedding, possibly for the first, second or third time? I've got brides, bless them, who are now on their third attempt at doing a wedding, because I've got my March, April, May had moved to September, October, and they're now moving to May next year. So on their third attempt. And to pour love and dedication and commitment into organising a wedding 3 times over within 12 months is commitment. But it really hones in onto what you love about each other and whether that balance of needs works, whether your order of your needs matches or complements or clashes, and how you've adapted to it. It's loads of people misquote Darwin with the survival of the fittest, and it's not. It's the survival of I can't remember the correct words, but it's survival of the one that adapts the most. It's like an evolution one. It's a really clumsy quote that I'm completely misquoting. But it's about the ones that adapt the best, that survive. And you will only adapt if you're aware. If you're just head down, crack on, go through it, at some point you will hit a brick wall. And at some point bits will fall off. But after all of that, you are left with the essentials, like what it is that is going to keep you together. And then if you want to pick up that again and pick up that again and put that differently down and fling that aside, then do, because you now know the core of what you're about. And that works with any type of love. Grief, parenthood, spouse, neighbourly love. I mean, I was listening to MP's question time today, as painful as it is. Do I mean question time? When we're in the house and everyone's shouting. And one of the MPs was saying, surely now through the COVID, we've seen the love within neighbourhoods, communities, towns, villages, families pull together. And surely now as a country, we need to fuel that and support that and pour money into it, or put attention to it, or put a flashlight onto it to show how good it is, and to keep the intention there, keep the integrity that's come out of it all. So we're awakening to how we love as a country, which is great. I mean, obviously there's the idiots out there that, are not all for one and one for all. But it's the awakening and finding out how we love, what order we love, our priority, and how we receive that love. And once you really have those conversations, you cracked life, quite frankly. Friendship, families, in-laws, neighbours, community, COVID, grief. It's good. Loving is good. And understanding how you love, understanding how you receive your love, and your priority of what's important within that love is a winner. And it will make the wedding amazing. Right then, I think I've done my little stint. We've got lots of you on. Hi. Give me a wave. Let me know if you've got any questions. Let me know if you think what I've said is a load of rubbish. Or if you're... there's no dog today. The cat's at the window and the chicken's away. Those of you that watched a couple of weeks ago. Hope you're all well. Lockdown is lifting, weddings are back on. We can now do the 30, and it doesn't have to be a marriage, it can be a wedding. So, which means celebrants are back in the room, which is fabulous. So, I will see you next week. If you guys want me to talk about something in particular, let me know. If you want me to get some other people on here, I can invite some wedding planners or some florists or some photographers or some videographers or some venues. Let me know if you want me to share a conversation with people. If I've got any brides that want to come and have a chat and pick your brains, then let me know. Lots of love. I'll talk to you soon. Take care for now. Bye.